how do I feel about this other than just like pure rage? Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and another episode of Pleasure Trove, where we dive into lots of stuff about sex and sexuality and relationships in the news, culture and media. It has been a while since I have done a Pleasure Trove episode, so I'm excited to be bringing you one now. Let's kick off as usual with some news, and I have some bad news first, but then I have some good news. So it was recently announced by the UK government that they are going to be bringing in age verification for porn platforms. Again, they tried to do this in 2017. They originally passed a bill that included this and it was going to be implemented in 2019, but those plans were dropped and now here we are in 2022 and they're trying again. This proposed legislation is part of the online safety bill and it will require porn sites to verify the age of their users. So their users will have to be over 18. It will be regulated by Ofcom, and if porn sites don't comply, they can be fined or completely blocked from the UK. So if you're accessing the internet from the UK, you would not be able to access said porn site that got blocked. You might be thinking, but Hannah, you said that this was bad news. How is this bad news? Surely trying to put legislation in place to stop young people from accessing porn is a good thing. Well, let's talk about that, shall we? I actually did a whole video already about the porn block when we originally thought it was going to be happening in 2019, and that goes into a lot of this stuff in a lot more detail, although specific to that situation, I don't know how similar the operations will be this time round, but you can definitely still check out and watch that video. But in short, my stance is that censorship is not the answer, but education is. As a society, as a culture, we tend to go straight towards moral panic instead of actually thoughtfully engaging with topics like pornography, especially when it comes to young people. There's also the issue of risks to privacy, and VPNs exist. So although this is just a UK thing, you will still be able to access certain sites from the UK if you are under 18 with a VPN, just by changing your IP address. And it's not like young people are strangers to getting around age blocks elsewhere on the internet and also in real life. Like, fake IDs exist even though they are illegal. Like, young people have been circumventing age restrictions since day dot. Like, it's not actually going to really stop young people who want to access porn from accessing porn. But of course, there are still lots of young people who aren't interested in looking at porn, but may still come across it unintentionally as they are surfing the web, as the youth say. And one of the things that I worry about is that this will further stigmatize porn, so not giving young people a place where they can talk about it. Which is why sex education that includes porn literacy, includes media literacy, is so important. When sex and relationships education fails young people, that doesn't stop them being curious about sex and wanting to find out information, and often porn is the only place on the internet where they can find that kind of stuff. If you're interested in exploring into this a bit more, I'll leave a link to a great article on Mashable by Rachel Thompson that goes into all of this stuff. Okay, so now on to the good news. The UK's first LGBTQ+ museum is going to be opening this spring. I found out about this on Twitter. It's going to be opening in Granary Square, which is around the back of King's Cross in London, and it is called Queer Britain. They don't know exactly when it will be opening yet, but you can check out their website for lots of information and updates, and it's going to be free admission because that's how we like to do museums here in the UK. Free. And it just looks really exciting and is going to explore loads of stuff around LGBTQ+ culture and history in the UK. So keep an eye out for that. In other sex-positive London museum news, the Vagina Museum has found a new premise in Bethnal Green, which is also free admission, and they will be opening again on the 19th of March. So this spring is just a good time for London's sex positive museums. I am very here for it. I don't remember the last time I went to a museum, and I am very excited to go back. The Vagina Museum have announced that there's going to be an expanded version of their History of Periods exhibition, and because they're moving into a bigger space, there's going to be more exhibitions and events. We love events. Okay, next up, I want to talk about some books. So fellow YouTuber Rowan Ellis recently announced that she has written a book called Here and Queer, A Queer Girl's Guide to Life, which is out on the 3rd of May this year. Rowan makes fantastic video essays about LGBTQ plus issues and media. If you don't watch her channel, would highly recommend. And I am super excited for her that she's written this book, and here is a little more about it. Here and Queer is a book about living your best queer life written for girls. This vibrant, inclusive guide is designed to help you be the strongest, proudest, happiest version of yourself. A celebration of the gift of queerness, it's packed full of heartfelt advice, comforting stories, and amazing illustrations from Jackie Sheridan, and will give you the tools you need to explore your own identity on your own terms. And when Rowan did a Q&A about the book on her Instagram stories, somebody asked, how focused on girl is this? Will non-binary, trans girls, femmes feel included? And this is what Rowan said. This book is 100% for queer trans girls as much as for queer cis girls. We have trans and non-binary contributors, and the book is very open and welcoming of anyone who connects with the idea of girl or woman in any way, including those who are realizing it's not an identity for them anymore. The vibe is basically focused but not exclusionary. This is Rowan's first book, and I know for first-time authors how important pre-orders can be, so I'll leave a link in the description to where you can pre-order Here and Queer. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism and Other Arguments for Economic Independence by Kristen R. Godsey. And this is the book that I'm doing a buddy read with my pal Eva Bloom, who is a sex educator and sex researcher, and I am this far through. But yes, I've been meaning to read this book for a very long time, and I'm very excited to have somebody else reading it alongside me so we can chat all about it. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to the sex chapters yet, because the sex chapters are like the last 2 chapters of the book. It's basically like book version of YouTube clickbait, where you put in the title like the main sexy hook and then you leave that to the end of the video, so people have to watch the entire video or read the entire book to get to the bit that they want. I'm like, fine, Kristen, fine. But I'm hoping that the chapters on sex will give me a bit more understanding and more to think about in terms of just all of these random swirling thoughts that I have in my brain around the impact of capitalism on our sex lives. So maybe there'll be some answers in here. But whilst the beginning of this book is not entirely what I expected, I am really enjoying it and learning a lot. A lot of the focus is around 20th century, post-World War II, economic and political history, with communism in the East, capitalism in the West, and then from the 1990s, this neoliberal capitalist world that we live in. And the book looks at these different regimes and their policies in terms of its impact on gender equality, on things like work, parental leave, and childcare. And as somebody who is thinking a lot about that stuff as it pertains to my current life now in a neoliberal capitalist society, very interesting stuff. Next up, I want to talk about some podcasts. It is a good time for sex podcasts right now. I'm very excited to share these with you. First up is In Touch with Ruby Rare. Ruby is a sex educator and author. She's also been on this channel before. She's also been on my podcast before. I obviously think that she is brilliant, and this podcast is also brilliant. So far, I've listened to the episodes on nudity, kink, sex education, non-monogamy, and pornography, and they're just all so fascinating. Managed to like pack such a punch into such short, concise episodes where Ruby is talking to all kinds of different people, experts on these things, but then also people who maybe have personal experiences and insights into these topics. It's just fascinating and so well produced and so well researched, and would recommend. And the other podcast that I would highly recommend you check out is The Second Circle Season 4 by Frankie Cookney, which is all about bad sex. Frankie is a sex writer and journalist, and she actually crowdfunded for this podcast series last year, which I was very happy to support, and it is out, it is here, and it is so good. Frankie is one of those people who I take a lot of inspiration from in the way that she talks about taking sex as a subject matter seriously. And that is 100% what she is doing with this podcast when it comes to talking about bad sex. The way that this series is kind of framed is that we often see a lot of messages about sex in terms of spice up your sex life and improve your relationship and improve your sex life, and like, here's how you can be having better sex. And what Frankie is trying to explore is, why is sex bad in the first place? And I just think that is such a great premise and such an important thing to explore, and yes, would recommend give it a listen. Next up, I have a TV pleasure trove favorite, which I absolutely binged, and it is Couples Therapy, which is available on BBC iPlayer if you are in the UK. I'm not sure about elsewhere, but maybe you can do some snooping around and try and find it. It's a documentary series with couples therapist Dr. Orna Goralnik. There are 2 seasons available. I watched one of the seasons like in one evening, and each season follows a bunch of different couples, and the camera is in the room with them during their therapy sessions. If you listened to any of Esther Perel's podcast, Where Do We Begin?, which is couples therapy basically, but just in podcast form, it's kind of like that, although I'm ashamed to say I've only listened to one episode of Esther Perel's podcast, but I keep meaning to. But I just found these glimpses that you get into other people's relationships and the struggles that they're going through, but then also how they're working through them with a professional therapist, just so fascinating. One of the inclusions in the show that I found really interesting is that you see Orna, the therapist, go to see her mentor and her advisor and work through her own professional ethical dilemmas and like talk about how she feels about her clients and, you know, do her own professional development in terms of improving her own work as a therapist. And I thought that was a really interesting addition to kind of like see the behind the scenes of therapy from the therapist's perspective as well. One of the things that they didn't show that I was really curious about is like, what do couples do after therapy? Because that can be like a really intense time. And so maybe they need to like unwind, but are they going home together and then they have to kind of like figure out a way to unwind from that together? Or do they purposefully make time to kind of like unwind apart? It's kind of like aftercare, but for therapy, but there's 2 of you. So you need to kind of navigate what you're going to do about that. It is mostly cis het couples. There was one lesbian couple in season 1 with a cis woman and a trans woman, and then in season 2 there was a gay male couple, and most of them are monogamous, although a couple of the couples talked about opening up their relationship a bit, and it is also pretty ethnically diverse as well. So just as a framing of the kinds of people and relationships that you might see on the show. Also, I'd recommend finding content warnings for each episode, but in general, the things that I remember coming up are domestic violence, sexual violence, conversion therapy, and suicide. And the conversations that they're having generally do get quite heavy, but it's also just full of so much love and warmth as well. Like, I really enjoyed this show. And finally, I have a film favorite, although is it really a favorite? But so many people have watched it, which is The Tinder Swindler on Netflix. And how do I feel about this other than just like pure rage? If you haven't seen The Tinder Swindler, it's a documentary about a man who meets women on Tinder and emotionally and financially abuses them. And the main women who are sharing their stories in the documentary because of him have been left in tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And it's not just him, there are other awful people out there doing this whole catfishing and financial, emotional abuse thing, and it is just horrible. But it's also really interesting seeing the reaction to this documentary because it has been so popular, and whilst yes, there are loads of people out there who are horrified by this man's behavior, and rightly so, he's also like weirdly found some success with this like newfound fame of his. Like, he's making videos on Cameo and like doing interviews, and I know I could get sucked into this like rage-filled rabbit hole of like seeing the things that he is doing and the opportunities that he's getting because of this documentary exposing his incredibly shitty behavior. But I'm not going to do that to myself because that is not a productive use of my time. But we're just going to leave it at that, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the Tinder Swindler as well, and of course on anything else I talked about in this episode of Pleasure Trove. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're doing well, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!